lang kami. But anyway, welcome to another episode of Gab
That
Mentality. And
mentality.
my name is Cleo, and I am joined by my awesome friend from way back, Shops. Hi, how
Hel-
are you?
Hello and good morning over there in Aachen, Germany. And again, good afternoon to any of our viewers out there. And of course, in not so sunny Manila right about now. So, medyo
Okay.
makulimlim po ang panahon ngayon dito.
Why is there a typhoon? Meron bang bagyo?
Parang
Or
meron yatang low pressure area. Parang ganon. So, hindi ko sure. Pero siguro may mga 2 weeks na rin na hindi masyado maaraw dito.
Okay. Pero so far naman, how are you doing ngayong pandemic? Dahil it's 2021 and ano na, kamusta naman ang pagmamanage nyo in terms of keeping it normal kahit na it's the new normal?
It's still the same. We're still
Mm.
cooped up at home. We only go out if we need to buy supplies as much as possible. My sister and I, we limit every single time we need to go out. So kung
Mm.
pwedeng we need to buy everything sa isang labasan lang, that's what we do. So
Okay.
ayon. And I haven't really been out and met with my friends for months already. So it's somewhat boring
Yeah, that's
kasi
right.
gusto mong lumabas,
That's true.
makisalamuha, but then again, there's the second strain
Exactly.
um, that is quite threatening
Mm.
most of us again, kaya tiis-tiis ulit.
That's true. And we are here in Germany. We're on the second wave, and it was announced the other day by the chancellor na we'll be extending until I think February 14th.
Mm.
Because especially it's winter, so mas malakas si COVID. So talagang mas we have to be more vigilant, and we are recommended not to wear the cloth masks that much anymore. Like pinirecommend na yung medical grade, like yung FFP2 I think, or yung
I
that's basta
see.
yung medical grade kasi it's much safer. But for the kids, since most of them talaga hindi mo maiwasan na they are not really very comfortable with the mask, they can still, for me with Leon, I would opt that he wears a mask. Ko yung binili namin yung parang bandana, yung nakaganon.
Oo, oo.
So that way, medyo, since malamig, it also helps with the wind, with the cold, so it's good. And in fairness naman sa bata, he knows that he needs to wear masks. Kaya kasi
That's good to know.
sabi niya, mask on. So, alam na kailangan niya mag-mask. So that is really yun nga, hindi ka pwedeng masyado makisalamuha sa ibang tao. I know it's boring.
Yes.
And just to quickly share, this year kasi is our alumni homecoming at my alma mater sa St. Paul, Parañaque. And since hindi nga pwede dahil may pandemic, we did a virtual reunion, a virtual homecoming. And it was a great success. So great job, girls, kung may nanonood man sa aking sa
Congratulations.
mga batchmates na itawid natin, 'di ba? Hindi talaga nagpahadlang sa pandemic ang mga Polinians, tuloy pa rin ang reunion. So, anyway, we are such chatterboxes. You can follow us on on Instagram. We have an Instagram account, Gab Mentality, and we are also on Twitter. Ayan, may Twitter kami.
And we already have Twitter.
Twitter. May Twitter kami. So it's Gab Mentality 2020. So for both accounts. We will be
Right.
flashing it on the screen later on. And of course, if you are looking for a streaming service, please use Restream. Yung itong ginagamit namin. Diba? Just acknowledge naman natin kung ano yung ginagamit nating platform. So
Yes. Oh,
you
it's
can view,
Restream.
yeah. You can view us live on Facebook and on our YouTube channel. Kaya tanong ng nanay ko, sabi ng nanay ko, ilagay nyo nga ni Shops yung ginagawa niya sa YouTube. Nay, nasa YouTube siya. Panoorin mo.
Nasa
Okay.
YouTube, yun po ang unang-una naming naisip.
Yes.
So, hopefully, if none of us would be that busy anymore, we can come up with an official Facebook page. And right about now, we would like to say hello to our viewers, live viewers. So I think we have like, hello, 4 of you. Hello,
Or
hello.
sino, Please,
Welcome to the live stream of
yeah,
Gab Mentality.
you
Welcome.
can also. Oh, so Kismet. Hi, Kisms. Kismet is my colleague from Perpetual Help Days. Hi, Kisms. Greetings from is it Dubai or United Arab Emirates? I think it's
Yeah,
from
that's what.
Dubai.
Hello.
Si Kismet and ang kanyang family who's there. Oh, hi Rhea and congratulations Rhea for
Hello,
giving birth.
Rhea. Congrats to the baby.
Okay,
On
thank you,
your
lady.
baby.
Yung mga babies, yan. Okay, so you can find us on Twitter and on Instagram and hopefully later on we can titignan ko lang yung screen ko kasi ayan. So ayan. So you could follow up on those social media platforms. Ito namang anak ko nagpapatulong pa sa game. Okay. So you could start sharing your screenshot so you could show everybody what's in store. What's in
Right.
store for us. Okay. Not too loud enough, please. Come on. Spielen.
Okie dokie. Can you now see my screen?
Yeah, okay. Can you click present and then I could
There you
yeah.
go. So,
There. So ayan. So you could see Shopee screen. So yeah, okay. I'm checking it. Okay, good. Yeah, so this is a very interesting topic. Would you like to tell us, Shops, why we decided to talk about this topic now?
yeah, sure. Well, number one reason is Cleo and I were big history nerds. Well, that's the reason why we came up with Gab mentality. And second of all, we bonded over this topic the day that we started. n- Uh, what do you call this? Realizing our likes, our similarities while we were working together in AIG. So, and another thing, there was one of our friends, Charmana, actually requested for this topic be tackled here on Gab Mentality. So we decided to start with the first two wives of Henry VIII, and that would be Catherine of Aragon and Anne Boleyn.
Yes.
So there are four others that we will be talking about all throughout the course of the next few weeks. So hopefully you stay tuned in to this to our live streams and enjoy. And if you
Yeah.
have anything that you can share, guys, feel free to drop in a comment and we will definitely acknowledge you.
Yes.
Alrighty.
Yeah, and that's another reason why we decided to uh, what do you call this? To put the two together, see
Yeah.
Catherine and because their stories are so connected. Oh, hi Harvey! Thank you for watching. I hope you will enjoy this episode. So kaya talaga pinagsama namin silang dalawa kasi very connected ang stories nila.
Mhm.
They really struggled, especially because Henry was at that time na they cross paths. It was the time when Henry was really very desperate to
Mhm.
have a son and heir. Okay, so why don't you go ahead, Shops, and take us further down memory lane?
All right. So as you can see there, we have your six wives, and we will start with the one who got divorce. So, welcome to another episode. This is technically episode number two. So, for all fellow history nerds, hello there, and we are happy to have you guys with us once again. Now, again, we are the Gab Mentality team, Cleo and myself, and we welcome you to our episode number two. Now, let's talk about the first wife. Now, this wife was divorced by King Henry VIII. We know her as Catherine of Aragon, or she's well known as, she's actually called the Infanta of Spain. She was born December 16th, 1485, and died January 7th, 1536. But later on, we will find out how she passed on from this earth. But let's talk about her colorful life first. So she is the youngest daughter of Aragon and Queen Isabella of Castile. Now, these are both powerhouses during that time in Spain.
Mhm.
So they're like Beyonce and Jay Z.
JC, yes.
So
Yeah.
what what ka, parang ang weird nung pagkakaano ko pagkaisip ko ng pagkakakumparahan
Beyonce
ko,
talaga
eh.
tsaka Jay-Z.
Pero alam niyo na kung bakit parang Beyonce and Jay-Z, kasi they're super powerful, they're well known around the world, and no one can mess with them. Okay,
Yes, and
Cleo, you were
yeah.
saying something.
Yeah, I was saying kasi, di ba parang Jay-Z and Beyonce si Henry and Catherine? Or was it
Oo,
Henry and Anne? Parang medyo pagka Jay-Z and Beyonce din yung ganun eh. But anyway, you are right to say na they are, teka, okay. Kasi they are very influential and everybody wants to be connected to them.
correct.
Kaya during that time, people were trying, royal houses across Europe were trying to ally themselves with
Mhm,
Isabella and Ferdinand. So si Henry Tudor, Henry VII, yung father in Henry VIII, was fairly a new king. So he was trying to establish his dynasty. Siyempre, gusto niya makita ng buong mundo na
right.
stable ang kingdom niya. So he had to ally himself with somebody powerful. And sino ba yun? Kundi ang power couple, Isabella and Ferdinand. Okay.
There you go. So at around, well, when she turned 3 years old, she was betrothed to the Prince Arthur of Wales. Now, Prince Arthur is the eldest son of King Henry VII and Queen Elizabeth of York. So just imagine, she was just like 3 years old. She had
Mhm.
no idea that she has already been betrothed to this prince somewhere over, you know, over England, and eventually she would definitely marry this young man. Um, Unfortunately, there's something that will happen
Mhm.
after she marries King Henry VII's son Arthur. What happened, Cleo?
What happened was, so they got married, very elaborate and very extravagant affair. So she was brought to England during her teens. Kasi when she was 3 years old, hindi pa pwedeng magpakasal yan. Hindi pa talaga pwede. So they had to wait for a couple of years so that they could really get married. So when she sailed to England, she got married to Arthur, very extravagant affair and all. Pero ang nangyari is they were sent to Wales because that's the principal residence of the Prince of Wales. Doon siya tinuturuan how to be a king. Nagkasakit siya kasi that time usong-uso yung sweating sickness. So nagkaroon ng epidemic.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just in here, baby. Leon, here. It wasn't just in England. It happened all over Europe. So naka-experience lang din ng crisis, ng health crisis. So namatay si Arthur. I think Catherine also caught the sweating sickness. Ito yung sweating sickness na you can have breakfast in the morning and dead at lunchtime. Parang ganon. So
Yes.
mabilis siya. And of course, the hygiene and medical knowledge at that time, it wasn't like what we have now. Kaya talaga maraming namatay. And very contagious siya. So, Prince Arthur died. And it was so sad for Catherine kasi ang option is since namatay na yung husband mo, usually brides would have to go home kung
Mhm.
saan sila galing. But Catherine, fudge, I'm sorry. Talaga naman. It's okay, Leon. So she was asked to go home, but she already has an idea that I will be a queen. So the insisted to stay, and there was a time that King Henry VII was, I think, already with a widower at that time. So
Oh, okay.
he was considering to marry Catherine. Kasi yung dowry niya, 'di ba pag nagpapakasal sila, especially yung mga nobility, they have may dowry.
Yep.
For Catherine's case, only half of her promised dowry was paid. So hindi pa
Mm.
nababayaran yung kalahati. And si Henry Tudor kasi, he's known as a miser.
Ah,
He's
there
known
you
na,
go.
he's known as a miser. Kaya during his reign, he filled the coffers of England. Nag-tax siya, tinaksan niya yung mga tao, especially yung mga noblemen para matakot na mag-rebel. I think minumultahan niya pag may nagre-rebel. Kaya he was really after the dowry din kasi yung half pa lang bayad. So he was thinking maybe I should marry her instead. Pero that's not tawag dito, hindi yun confirmed ha, pero may rumors na he was considering of marrying her instead. But then again, I think he passed away. Then Henry, yung bagong king now, Henry VIII, married her. So medyo matagal din. Like
Yeah.
and there were accounts that said that Henry was really in love with her. And I think gusto kong maniwala, I wanted to believe that they were both in love.
Yeah, me too. And again, it wasn't easy for Catherine to be in a foreign land alone. I mean, you were brought there, betrothed at 3 years old. You went there. Was she in her? She was in her early
Teens.
20. She was in her yeah, okay. She was in her teens when she went to England to be married to Arthur, and then all of a sudden, boom! After 5 months, tegi na si Arthur. So parang 'di ba, what the hell am I gonna do here? But she stayed,
Yes.
and I think I watched a few episodes of this series on Stars.
The Spanish
Um,
princess?
yeah, the Spanish princess.
Uh,
And I can only feel for her because it wasn't easy staying in in a very in a foreign place, like you don't feel at home.
mhm.
So, and she kept on waiting and waiting and waiting, like what are the plans of these people for me, yet alone my parents. So it was a lonely life for her for quite some time before she developed a relationship with Henry Tudor. And that time, she was young, she was older than
Yeah,
Henry, and Henry was just
couple of years.
blossoming into
Yeah.
this young man, the young prince. And
Mhm.
eventually they got married. And if I may move on to the next slide. So let's talk about more facts about Catalina de Aragon. So that's what she's called in Spain. So she served, well, prior to serving as a regent for 6 months, she got married to Henry Tudor. Well, I think that was, correct me if I'm wrong,
Mhm.
was it about like 5 years after, more than 5 years after?
I think it
Um,
was Yeah, I think it was more than 5 years after. And kasi marami kasing kumontra dun sa match because una-una she was the widow of the previous Prince of Wales. So
right,
parang and I think that time buhay pa si Margaret Beaufort. And Margaret Beaufort is a very formidable woman. Yeah, formidable woman. She's the grandmother of Henry VIII. And talagang influential itong si Lola.
yes,
And sabi nga masyado nga raw pakialamera and Margaret was said to be the mother-in-law from hell. Yun ang sabi yun ang description sa kanya kasi nga pakialamera. But the thing is, I read that Margaret Beaufort wanted Henry to marry a foreign princess. Another foreign princess. Hindi si Catherine kasi nga, syempre, parang hindi na siya parang ang tawag dito, parang pre-loved item, kumbaga. Parang
there,
yun, I was
exactly.
thinking of a term. Pero parang siyang pre-loved item na. Di ba tayo, pag bibili tayo ng isang bagay, isang gamit, sometimes we have second thoughts about pre-loved items. Pero wag
Uh-huh.
ka. Kung ang pre-loved item ay Louis Vuitton, ay na parang si Catherine of Aragon. Kasi ang LV, correct me again if I'm wrong, yung mga fashion experts dyan, yung mga fashion aficionados. Correct me if I'm wrong, di ba ang LV hindi nagde-decline ang
Hindi nagde-depreciate yung
yun,
value
hindi
niya. In fact,
nagde-depreciate.
so if you're gonna like wait for a sale, I don't think LV does sales. They don't do that.
Huwag kang mag-abang.
And in fact, yun nga, when you buy an item, it's like you're already investing. It's similar to an Hermes.
Yeah.
It does not depreciate in value. So
Mm.
if you like to if you're planning to sell your liver to buy an LV item,
Never talaga.
I think meron ka ng pampa-hospital kapag binenta mo yung item afterwards.
Di ba? Kasi if you will look at it, parang if So parang, I don't know ha, this is just speculation. Speculation. Purely speculation. Kasi we don't really know how people thought about her at that time.
Yes, yes.
So parang sa akin lang, baka people, especially si Margaret, Margaret Beaufort, maybe she was thinking na she's pre-loved item na eh. Bakit mo pa siya
Mhm.
gustong pakasalan? Pero
Right.
Louis Vuitton na pre-loved item si Catherine of Aragon. So I don't think it's what do you call this? It's much of
A waste.
a waste, 'di ba? So kaya teka nga itong anak ko talagang kinukulit ako dito eh.
Well,
So
kahit papaano naman siguro I think Margaret Beaufort saw the value of Catherine. And again,
yeah,
'di ba, kung anak ka ng nina JC at ni Beyonce, kumbaga
JC.
si Catherine is si Blue Ivy,
Oh
'di ba?
gosh.
Parang hihindian mo ba? Parang these guys made it. I mean, they're very powerful all
Yeah.
around Europe. So hindi naman hindi pa nagfe-fade yung power ng mga magulang niya during that time. It's just like
Mm.
5, 6 years. So sige, let's push through with the marriage to the second prince. Kumbaga the
Ituloy na
spare.
ang kasal. Oo.
That's who Henry was then, right?
Yeah,
And
he
it
was fair.
it was let's say it was a pretty successful marriage because we believe, like you and we believe that they really fell in love. It
Mm.
was a genuine connection, that really happened, and that's the reason why she technically became pregnant like 9 times.
Yeah. So she was parang they were really very close and I think Henry really pursued her that he really insisted on marrying her. So if hindi niya ginawa yun, then baka hindi talaga niya mahal si Catherine, but he did. So it's most probable talaga na they were really in love. Imagine
True.
they were married for I think 20 years
Yes.
before siya nahumaling sa iba. But then
Yes.
again, they were crowned together. So
Yes.
so that says a lot. Yes, baby. Yeah, come on.
There. So, yun nga, she served as regent for 6 months in 1513, and during this time, Henry was out there fighting France. I forgot who the nobility was that they won over, but when that happened, she sent like a cloth back to Henry when she became victorious off of that specific fight, if I'm not mistaken.
It was
So
the Scots kasi
there.
it was the Scots. So Henry was in France and Catherine was regent. And during that time, in Scotland, kapatid ni Henry yung queen, sa bali asawa ni King James.
Mhm.
And parang James took advantage of Henry's absence. So he
Okay.
attacked, he did a couple of raids in the borders. So si Catherine sent an army. And this is what yung army na kay Henry, what she did was very, very impressive. She was able to inspire farmers, the local workers to fight for her in England. So she was
Mhm.
very inspiring, and it's really beautiful to know that even if hindi talaga siya doon, the people loved
Mhm.
her.
Alright.
Yun.
So ayun nga, nasabi ko kanina na she got pregnant for 9 times, and unfortunately, she was only able to bear, um, one amongst those 9 pregnancies. So it was Mary who eventually became queen. So it was just unfortunate kasi out of the 9, parang dalawa yata yung lalaki na na dapat buhay.
Mm.
Unfortunately, one was dead, another was still died actually, and one was stillborn
Mm.
when it happened. So it was, Henry eventually started building up that frustration because he couldn't sire an heir. And we all know that during that those times, if you're a king, you have to secure the monarchy by siring an heir, and if you don't have that, then your kingdom is definitely in danger. So
Mm.
you need to know how to strategize, and no matter And regardless of him taking other women, he has mistresses. Let's be honest, he is a king. He can do whatever he wants. He had mistresses, but then again, he never acknowledged, either or any of his wives or daughters if he had any. But there
Yeah.
was one, I think,
First
from
one.
Miss Blount, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken,
From a
right?
certain
But
amount. Yeah.
yes, and he didn't acknowledge that son. Pero
Mhm.
it wasn't sad. He was like having a back and forth, I think, based from what I've read and from what I've seen on doc from the documentaries that I've seen. Henry was going back and forth if ever he was going to acknowledge that son from Betsy or Betty Blount, Elizabeth
Bessie.
Blount,
Yeah,
or
Elizabeth
Bessie,
Brown. Yeah. Mhm.
or Bessie Blount. Unfortunately, he didn't recognize that son, and nagpatuloy pa rin yung samahan nila ni Catherine.
Mhm.
And then something happened.
Ayan na. Something
Dito na
happened.
dito na magkaka-intertwine ang buhay ng diniborsyo at ng sumunod. So, take it away, please.
Yeah, okay. So, kasi there's a song, Divorced, Beheaded, and Died, Divorced, Beheaded, Survived. Para daw ma-remember mo yung six wives, tandaan mo kung ano nangyari sa kanila. So, divorce was Catherine. So, yung susunod naman yung beheaded. So, what Shops was saying, intertwined talaga ang stories itong dalawang babaeng ito. So, ano ba nangyari sa kanila? So, since he couldn't sire a son na he was very desperate for, he turned his affections to a certain Miss Boleyn.
There.
Yeah, who happens to be a lady in waiting ng kanyang wife.
Mm.
Diba? So, sino ba si Anne? So, pero before Anne pala, di ba sabi ni Shops, he had several mistresses and one of them was Anne's sister. So,
Yes.
so naging kachokaran din niya yung sister ni Anne. Kaya ang sinasabi kaya din very controversial si Anne kasi yung sister niya was a mistress.
Right.
And rumor has it she also bore Henry two kids, but
There.
Henry didn't acknowledge them as his kids.
Mhm,
Ang na-acknowledge lang niya was yung kay Bessie.
mhm.
Si Henry Fitzroy lang in-acknowledge niya. But the kids from Mary, the Anne's sister, he didn't acknowledge. Yon.
Yun. In-acknowledge niya si Henry Fitzroy pero hindi niya ginawang
Yeah.
heir, 'di ba?
Air, no. Kasi maraming kumontra.
Oo,
Especially si Catherine. Of course,
obviously.
I bet Catherine really talagang I'm really sure that Catherine didn't really agree to
Yeah.
to naming Henry Fitzroy an heir. Kasi talagang I wouldn't. Siyempre, you have a daughter. She's a princess through and through. Granddaughter of Isabella and Ferdinand of Spain. So I'm sure she really fought for it. So
I'm sure.
si Anne was a lady in waiting, and pero hindi naman agad na in love si Henry sa kanya. It took some time.
Mhm.
It took a couple of years before Henry finally
Saw
notices
something in
her.
her.
Oo.
And
So,
let me just highlight the final bullet here before we move on to the next slide. So, the King's Great Matter was all about Anne, actually. Okay, so during this time, Catherine of Aragon found support from John Fisher and he was the Archbishop of Rochester back then, and also Sir Thomas More. So she also found Mary rooting for her during the King's Great Matter, and this was Henry contemplating to marry Anne and divorce her. So during this time, she had these three people as allies. So with that said, let's move on to the next slide. And what she did was this: she adamantly refused, okay, to be sent to a nunnery because, again, I am a queen and I am the husband. I am married to the King of England. So there is no way for you to throw me into a nunnery. Pero yun ang parang sinuggest ng mga nag-a-advise dito kay Henry. So parang si Henry, oo, umoo na. Parang, kailangan siyang, kumbaga, tumira na sa nunnery pero hindi niya tinuloy.
Yeah,
Eh,
and just to add to that, ang nag-a-advise kay Henry at that time was Cardinal Wolsey. And si Thomas Wolsey was a very talented statesman, and he was the Archbishop of Canterbury. So medyo mataas ang posisyon niya. He suggested that na mag-retire na lang si Catherine to a nunnery. Pero ang sabi ni Catherine, as I recall, God has never called me to become a nun. Yun ang
mhm,
sabi niya. Hindi, kasi alam niya, her destiny is to be queen. So,
right.
talagang, like what you said, she adamantly refused. And, of course, since she refused, and of course, what Henry wants, Henry gets, uh, he treated her very badly. It was so cruel and heartbreaking. Mama. She went through all that.
Yeah, it was just a sad ending, what happened to the two of them because she didn't want to give in. She didn't want to yield to the plans of Henry, and that's the reason why Henry treated her like, unfortunately, like trash, and like she never mattered in his life. So now, come late December 1535, she was already sensing her death. By the way, and she did retire to a nunnery, but she was sent to live in various castles. Ever since what do you call this? Henry decided to establish a relationship with Anne and eventually, married her. So tumira siya sa iba't ibang castles within England. And by 1535, in December, she wrote a letter to her nephew, the Emperor Charles V, and pinagbilin niya yung, of course, her only daughter. Made her that was her will, and asked him to protect Mary. And it has been alleged that she penned one final letter to Henry and still addressed him as most dear lord and husband. So
Yes.
she really never yielded up until the day she sensed that she's soon gonna die.
Yeah.
And true to what she was thinking of, she died in Kimbolton Castle
Mm.
and buried in Peterborough Cathedral with the ceremony due to her position as a Dowager Princess of Wales. Sadly, and it was not as a queen,
Yes.
and quite unfair.
Yeah, it was really unfair. And what I find the most saddening was hindi pinayagan na magkita yung mag-ina. Like
Oo.
Henry did not allow Mary to visit her mother. Catherine was also not allowed to visit Mary, so they couldn't even write letters to each other. But
Yes.
of course, there were some sympathizers who would ferry letters to mother and daughter in secret. Because it was really very sad. Imagine mo may sakit ka, gusto mo makita yung anak mo, mamamatay ka na, hindi mo siya makita. So
Oo.
Henry said, okay, I will let you see each other if you will only acknowledge Anne as your new queen. But of course, being the queen that she was rather, Catherine didn't say no. Catherine said no, and same thing with Mary. And I think that's why Anne did not treat Mary very nicely.
Mhm.
I think that's one of the many reasons
Correct.
why the relationship between them wasn't really very good.
It's understandable for these two ladies not to, give in because they know for a fact their agencies. I mean, I'm the queen of England and my daughter is an heir. So why would we acknowledge this woman who's trying to cut into our lives?
Mhm.
So there. Parang
How
tama lang talaga.
letter?
Oo, parang ito na ba't ka sumisingit, 'di ba? Parang hindi
Yeah.
hindi mo kailangan sumingit kasi may buhay kaming tatlo, pero yun nga 'pag sinabi ng hari hindi mababali, kaya nangyari ang nangyari. So ganito ang kinasadlakan ni Catarina de Aragon. She was sent to live in various castles without even seeing her daughter, writing to her. Pero buti na lang nga may mga sympathizers na nagfe-ferry ng mga letters nila. Pero mahirap pa rin kasi hindi mo nakitang lumaki yung anak mo, hindi mo
Mhm.
nakita kung anong nangyari. Oo nga, nagsusulatan kayo, pero iba pa rin yung mayakap mo, mahawakan mo, 'di ba,
Mhm.
makita mo man lang bago ka namatay. And there was even a rumor that she was poisoned, but
Mhm.
but in truth, she died of cancer.
He died of cancer, yes. And of course,
Mm.
during that time, since very scandalous yung relationship ni Henry with Anne, a lot of people still supports Catherine. Kasi nga she was
Yes.
loved by the people. So they didn't really like Anne too much. So I think they entertained these rumors that probably Catherine was poisoned.
Right.
Probably.
Probably.
Allegedly.
Oo, kasi
Probably.
nga daw parang
Allegedly.
ano, parang nung inautopsy si Queen, Catherine, itim daw yung heart.
Mm,
Pero yun nga, nung siyempre years passed, na-prove naman ng science na she really died of natural causes, and unfortunately, she got hit by cancer, and that also was what happened to her daughter eventually. Queen Mary also, passed away due to some sort
cancer.
of cancer,
Yes.
more like an ovarian cancer.
Mm.
So there is the story of the first queen that Henry VIII wedded and then divorced. Her name was Catherine of Aragon. Now, the second lady that we were talking about, her former lady in waiting, is named Anne Boleyn. So we don't really know when she exactly was born, pero historians, legit historians, say that she was born in the month of July between the years 1501 and 1507. And she died May 19, 1536. I remember the day of her death, May 19, hindi ko nakakalimutan yan because I love her. Kahit na medyo
Eh, pagkaano
played in
siya,
history as a witch, as a villainess. I really don't care because I love how she managed to really hit her goal. Kumbaga, um, she was really, how do I call this? Talagang
gold
hard hit,
digger.
gold digger, hard hitting,
Gold digger.
and very
Mm.
feisty, and she's a woman ahead of her time. I think Catherine was is also the same. They're women
Mhm.
ahead of their time. They're forward thinkers, and they stick to their beliefs, and that's the reason why she lost her head.
Yeah.
So,
Kaya siya si beheaded dun sa song. Yeah. Kasi
correct,
divorce, beheaded, die, divorce, beheaded, survive. So siya si unang beheaded kasi dalawa yun eh.
correct. So, ito yung unang-unang naputulan ng ulo dahil nga ba saan? So, pag-usapan natin siya.
Title.
So,
Uh,
si Anne, she was, of course, nobility. She was born to Thomas Boleyn and Elizabeth Howard. They were born in uh what do you call this? They lived in Hever Castle, and then all of them, actually, the three of them, she has two siblings, Mary Boleyn and George Boleyn. They were born in the Boleyn home in Blickling in Norfolk. But all of them, they grew up at Hever Castle, which I hope to visit someday.
mhm.
So,
Me too.
eh,
Me too. Me too.
fingers crossed, bago sana ako maging senior citizen, makabisita man lang ako doon.
Uh, para kaya pa ng legs maglakad, 'di ba?
Oo, para kaya pa ng legs ko maglakad. So
Mhm.
here, while she was growing up, she's the brunette amongst dalawa silang brunette, si George tsaka siya ang brunettes. Ang
Mhm.
blondie,
Si
the
Mary.
the golden girl is Mary. But while
Yeah.
they were growing up, most of the noble women during that time, it's either they're like schooled at home or they are sent to various monarchies, if I'm not mistaken. So for Anne, she had to spend time in the Netherlands under the court of Margaret of Austria, and she gained great feedback. According to Margaret of Austria, the kid, she was sent there around 12 years old. The kid really is, she's smart, she's confident, and she has this some sort of vibe or happy personality
Mhm.
even while she's like young. So kumbaga, again, she's a remarkable kind of kid when she was like in the court of Margaret of Austria. And as she grew up, let's talk about how her life in France changed her all the more. I'll give that to you, Cleo.
Okay. So when she was sent to France, she became a maid of honor to Queen Mary. Queen Mary meaning Mary Tudor, Henry's sister, who was married to the old French king. And when the old French king died, she became the lady in waiting to the next queen, Queen Claude. So see, Claude was the wife of Francis the First of France. See, Francis the First and Henry has this really big rivalry together. So, naging
Yes.
lady in waiting siya ni Queen Claude. And Queen Claude was a very fashionable woman, she was sophisticated. So Anne learned art, fashion, illuminated manuscripts, literature, music, poetry, and religious philosophy. So yung mga knowledge that she gained while she was in France and with Margaret of Austria helped her when she moved back to England. So yung Anne became known for being a sophisticated and fashionable woman.
Mhm.
She started the trend of wearing the French hood. Yun yung nasabi ng mga English was very scandalous.
Mhm.
It was scandalous because it shows hair. Kasi
Right.
nakaganon kasi siya eh. Kaya,
Mhm.
eh ang pag pinagpapakita ka ng buhok at that time, it was not really very accepted.
Yes, you're like seen as wayward pag nagpakita ka ng buhok
Yeah,
during the Tudor time. So you gotta be able to wear that house above your head,
the,
literally
the
look like a
gable,
house.
the gable
Yes.
hood. Yeah.
Parang ako seriously, I don't know how I would be able to manage that, let alone, you have a huge chunk of hair tied around your head, tapos meron ka pang, 'di ba, gable, tapos yun pa. Parang wow, 'di ba?
And kasi, mukha kasi talaga siyang bubong. I'm sorry.
Oo, literal naman, mukha naman talagang bubong. Kaya pero 'di ba, since mga conservatives nga ang ano, ang mga Brits, they're like, well, during that time when
Mm.
there wasn't anything that serious yet, there were like Catholics really.
Mhm. Yeah. At teka, speculation lang. Napag-usapan natin ng gable hood. The gable hood looks like a roof. I'll probably look for a photo of it. Basta it looks like a roof. Hindi kaya dahil ang mga babae ay ang ladies of the homes and ladies of may
Puwede rin,
bubong.
teka
Hindi kaya?
babalikan ko yung picture ni ano,
Sige. But,
'yan, ayan
yan.
po ang gable hood. So eto
That's
po
the
ang
gable
itsura
hood.
niya. So, literal mukha siyang bubong. Tapos
Mukha
yung
siyang
nandiyan, kailangan mong may suot na ganyan para hindi makita yung buhok mo. Siguro kaunting bangs, oo, pero yung talagang
counting.
buhok mo na
Yeah.
flowing, hindi
Yeah.
acceptable yon during their times. Parang again, you were seen as wayward. And
Yeah.
it's like whorish na
Yeah.
levels yung ganon na pag nagpakita ka ng hair kasi nang-aakit ka na daw.
Nangaakit ka na daw.
Oo,
Oh, and
nang-aakit na.
speaking of nang-aakit din, hindi ka din pwede magpakita ng the inside of your wrists. It's also
Yes.
it's also frowned upon. Yun nga,
Mhm.
para ka daw nang-aakit.
Yeah, and
That
that's the reason why when you notice like the dresses
mga
during
ganyan,
the 16th century, from the 13th to the 16th century, they really don't show their wrist. Talagang may
pero
cover, 'di ba? May
kita
tawag
ito,
doon eh. Oo.
pero
Pero
kita ito,
kita kita yung neck, yung nape, tsaka yung
tsaka
dibdib kita. Oo.
yung cleavage. Oo.
And ang standard of beauty noon is you should be porcelain skinned.
Mm.
And that's how the Brits look at beauty during that time, and that's the reason why I guess Anne wasn't really considered stunning, because she didn't fit the mold. she
Yeah.
she was she was, I know, she has certain charm to her because she knows how to carry herself.
Mm.
She was oozing with confidence because of her intelligence, her smarts. She knows the art of courtly love, and that's the reason why there were men who were really looking at her way when she came into court. Pero yun nga, si Henry, hindi kaagad siya nahumaling. Parang, oh, meron tayong bagong lady in waiting. Pero yun ba? Pero kasi nung time na yun, siguro we can assume na ang kinababaliwan na niya during that time was Mary,
Was
or I think,
Mary. Yeah,
yeah, Mary
maybe it
Boleyn.
was Mary. Yeah, it was Mary probably. Most probably it was Mary. Kasi contrary to a lot of people think, Henry is not really like a total playboy that he has women left and right. No,
Yeah,
he was very discreet and para siyang one mistress man. I don't know if
one
that's the
mistress at a time.
one
So
mistress at a
siguro,
time.
meron siyang official, meron siyang side chick,
Oo,
kumbaga. So,
oo.
pero hindi siya nagdadalawang side chick, nagtatatlong side chick at
Oo.
the same time. So, kumbaga, para at least, yun nga, the discretion, it's still there.
Mm.
But, yun nga, parang when eventually unti-unti na siyang nakikitaan ng amor or nano-notice na ni Henry siya, iyon nga parang everything just suddenly started to turn around.
Mhm.
Kasi let me move on to my next
The
slide.
next one, yeah.
Okay? Since I mentioned that, she was seen as brilliant, charming, very driven, okay, elegant kasi she bears French fashion. And yun nga, as you can see, she's wearing the French hood in this photo.
Yeah,
Kumbaga,
ganda.
she was really seen as one witty and lively English woman. She was opinionated and very passionate. And, not all Tudor women were like her. And
Mhm.
she really exuded that. Kaya naman every single time siguro na nagkaka-party sa mga castles ni Henry, eh kumbaga
Nagsha-shine.
nagsha-shine siya. Kaya
Mm.
unti-unti ayun na-attract na itong hari natin. But she's known to have a sharp tongue and a terrible temper. And, i-match mo siya kay Henry. So good luck, 'di ba?
Oh, 'di
So
ba?
ano na nangyari after nung nano-notice na siya ni King Henry, Cleo?
So nung nagkakapansinan na sila, so Henry was very enamored with her. So
Yes,
pinapadala niya ng regalo si Anne. Parang pag nanliligaw, 'di ba, sa mga nagde-date or mga nililigawan, yung mga lalaki nagreregalo sa mga kababaihan, sa mga ladies. And Henry
true.
was no different. And when Henry is besotted, he goes all out. As in, he's very extra and very romantic. He's,
Gusto
he's
ko yun,
extra.
extra.
He's extra. And Henry was like, he was the Renaissance prince. Imagine, and of course, imagine mo, hindi siya yung itsura ng matabang monarch that we often
Oo,
see. During that time, he was at his prime. I think he was in his 30s at that time, if I'm not mistaken, or for
mm.
40s, so at his prime.
40s pero hindi pa siya gano'n ka-jubis.
Hindi siya ka-chubis, oh, 'di ba?
Oo,
So,
oo.
imagine this, ladies. He's 6'2". He's very intelligent. He's charming. He
He
can
knows
sing.
poetry.
He can dance. 'Di ba? He plays real tennis. Iba daw ang real tennis sa tennis. I don't know
Oo
why.
nga daw.
Pero magkaiba daw 'yon. So
Mm.
he plays real tennis. He hunts, he wrestles, he boxes. So he's very athletic. He jousts. So,
Yes.
siyempre machong-macho, 'di ba? Very, ano ba ang term natin sa mga ano, hot, ayun, hot. Ayun,
Oh,
sige,
hot siya. Kumbaga
hot,
sa ating mga Xennials, Millennials, 'pag nakakita tayo ng gano'ng levels, kumbaga, para siyang,
6'2",
siguro
cultured.
for the two of us, siguro we can say, um, sino ba 'to? Si Wolverine,
Ay, si
'di
Papa
ba?
Blue,
Siyempre kung hindi siya, siyempre si si Loki natin, 'di ba?
Tom
Si Tom
Hiddleston.
Hiddleston. So, kumbaga gano'n yung tingin sa kanya na parang he's such a beautiful
A
king.
beautiful man.
A beautiful, beautiful man.
A
Parang
beautiful
'di ba,
man.
tsaka nung time na yun ang 6'2" po ay katangkaran na talaga. Kasi ang parang average height nun Tudor times for guys
Five,
was like 5'7", 5'8".
5'5", mga gano'n, oo.
Oo, so matangkad matangkad siya talaga kumbaga talagang nangingibabaw siya if you walk, if you let him walk through crowds, talagang magpa-part ang mga crowds kasi talagang,
Mm,
"Ay may matangkad na taong paparating, sino ba 'to? Parang ang gwapo." 'Di ba
yes.
parang sinong hindi mahuhumaling?
Oh, 'di ba tapos redhead pa siya. So
Exactly.
so you would see, kaya sabi nga nila parang hawig daw siya ni Prince Harry.
Yeah, some say.
Some say. So it's really, he's very attractive. So imagine mo isang ganitong attractive man sending you presents. Of course you would feel how do you say, happy, or
Like
uh
super, super important.
oo,
You will
super
also feel
important.
extra.
So you also feel extra. And Henry sent her, at hindi lang to flowers, people. He sends her jewelry.
Yes.
Alahas ito. But what Anne did, whenever she receives presents from Henry, she would send them back.
Mhm.
Nagpaka-hard to get ang ate natin. Kasi she said, sabi nga namin ni Shopee, she's a gold digger. Hindi gold digger, gold
Goal.
digger. So she was fighting for her chastity. So and si Henry baliw na sa kanya. And Henry offered to make her sole mistress. Kasi
Yes.
and take note also that Henry was a very religious man. So ayaw niyang humiwalay. I think basically he didn't really want to divorce Catherine or
Yeah.
separate from her. So he offered Anne, maging mistress kita pero ikaw lang.
Mm-mm.
But of course, si Anne, she has bigger goals, bigger dreams.
It was
So
like, "Nah, nay, nay, no, I'm not gonna buy that."
so ayaw niya. So talagang humihindi siya. But ayaw niya talaga. So I think Henry really it really drove Henry crazy.
Yes, exactly. And this happened in the course of like 6 or 7 years, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
6 or 7.
So you can really see how the strategy that she did. Kumbaga, well, at first, well, when she made it to the court of Henry VIII, she became a lady in waiting to Catherine of Aragon. She had no plans, obviously. She had no plans of compromising the marriage of these two. She was just there to simply be a lady in waiting and, to simply live her life. But yun nga ang nangyari, napana ni Cupido na na-attract sa kanya itong hari. So, ayun na, ganun na ang panliligaw na ginawa ni Henry sa kanya. And now that, she kind of have like an idea that, oh, I can like have Henry on the palm of my hands, or like wound him in like sa fingers ko na paglaruan ko siya, 'di ba? Parang gagawin ko na since she knows for a fact na she doesn't want to be a mistress.
She doesn't.
She So there, she knows her agency. She knows that she didn't want to be like Mary, who would
Just be
bo-
discarded.
yeah, who would bear a son, be discarded, and then wala na, 'di
Mhm.
ba? Siya iba talaga, and I think her way of thinking, she got it when she lived in Austria in the court of Margaret and Queen Claude.
Yeah.
Kumbaga, all of those influenced her to be the woman that she was during the time that Henry was, powerfully pursuing her.
Mm.
And she kept on resisting his charms, pero in the long run, nainlababo na rin si ate mo.
Bumigay din ang ate mo.
Bumigay din siya. So,
Marupok!
naging marupok din siya in the long run. So, ayun nga, 7-year courtship. Pero hindi na talaga nila agad-agad kinonsummate yung relationship nila. Bumigay na lang si Mary nung malapit na silang ikasal at nung nakikitaan na niya ng liwanag na, aba, talagang may gagawin itong si Henry para pakasalan ako, para maging Queen of England ako, just like, Catherine of Aragon.
Mm.
So, nung nakita na niya na unti-unti nang nangyayari yon, and I don't know, can you tell them how she influenced the king?
Rumor rumor has it, rumor lang, na she showed Henry a book uh,
Excuse
that
me.
influenced Henry's way of thinking. Kasi Anne was a reformist. So imagine
Mm,
that time England was Catholic.
yes.
And also that time the Protestant faith is gaining momentum. I mean, nagsispread na siya across Europe because of Martin Luther.
Mm-hmm.
So Anne was a reformist, so she feels that maybe she can use this to influence Henry. So may pinakita siyang book kay Henry, and that time Henry was getting frustrated with his great matter. Yung hindi talaga siya
Yes.
mabigyan ng divorce ng king or ng pope or ng annulment. So he was getting frustrated. So Anne showed him a book, and the book says uh, that kings are the representatives of God on earth. So
Mm-hmm.
so it's like saying, okay, since you're God's representative on earth, why don't you have the power to grant yourself a divorce? So si Henry, oo nga no. Diba? So, oo nga no, you have a point. So take note also, since England was so Catholic at that time, yung mga books na ganito, they're considered heretical.
Oo.
That's why sabi nga na, I don't know, I'm not sure if it's true if he was really shown this book. But
Mm-hmm.
then again, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe it was also influenced by Thomas Cromwell. One of
Maybe.
the, and that time, close sila ni Anne.
Oo. Mm.
That time close sila ni Anne. So Anne allied herself with Thomas Cromwell. I think they have common friends. I don't know what,
Oo.
but they were allies. So maybe it was somehow influenced by Thomas Cromwell, or maybe it was Anne who nudged. Since Anne has the king's affection, siguro
Right.
ginamit ni Cromwell. Oh, pakita mo kay Henry to para simulan na natin Reformation. Ayan.
Kasi 'di ba nung una ang pinaglalaban ni Henry was na-consummate na ni Catherine yung ano
Marriage.
nila, yung marriage nila ni Arthur. Pero, Catherine kept on insisting that nothing happened during those 5 months. So the marriage was not consummated until he saw this verse in the Bible saying that you shall not sleep with your brother's wife, or you
Mhm.
shall not take your brother's wife. And then he did it, he took it literally, na pinakasalan ko yung kapatid ng brother ko, kaya din siguro ako
Cursed.
pinarusahan. I
Uh,
was cursed. That was the reason why I wasn't given an heir by Catherine, because I married her and she was the wife of my brother. I did wrong, pero hindi pa rin nag-yes ang
ang Pope.
ang
Yeah.
Pope. So
And
the Reformation happened.
oo, so sabi ni Henry na, "Oo nga 'no, parang it may point yung book na
Correct.
I'm God's representative on earth. So why not
Yeah,
ride
you're the
myself on a
anointed.
horse?
Oh, you're the
Oo,
anointed. Why not do something?
or why not set up my own church?" 'Di ba?
Exactly. The
'Di
Church
ba?
of England.
The Church of England. I will probably share on Facebook this clip from Horrible Histories when Henry
Mhm.
was thinking of the Church of England. It's super funny. But anyway, so he well, Anne somehow probably influenced that kasi Anne was a reformist. Kaya
Yep.
parang, oh, okay, sige, oh nga no, why not try it, 'di ba?
Mm.
Patayo tayo ng own church. Okay.
So ayan na nga ang nangyari. So while nung habang nangyayari 'yan, may mga nangyari pa kay Mary. So September 1st, 1532, Henry granted her the Marquisate of Pembroke, and that's an appropriate peerage for a future queen. Kumbaga talagang gino-groom na siya. Naging ka-level na niya yung mga meron siyang tatlong naging ka-level sa power when Henry granted her this. And of course, since she was given this title, evidently the rest of her family followed. Naging na-elevate yung father niya, tapos yung isang pinsan din niya na-elevate sa position kasi nga she was the current. She's being pursued heavily, powerfully by Henry, kaya ito yung mga ginawa sa kanya, binigay sa kanya, so to speak, para mapaniwala siya, like, my love is really real for you. I'm taking it seriously, and I really have plans of making you my queen and not just a sole mistress, so to
Mm.
speak. And in fact, this is what happened. Henry and Anne secretly married November 14th of 1532. And then she soon became pregnant after that secret wedding. And to just legalize the first wedding, which was considered to be unlawful during that time, okay, there was a second wedding service, as you can read on the slide. It's also private in accordance with the Royal Book in London on January 25th, 1533. And then events began to move at a quick pace. On May 23, 1533, Cranmer sat in judgment at a special court convened at Dunstable Priory to rule on the validity of Henry's marriage to Catherine. So he declared it null and void. So this was Thomas Cranmer, if I'm not mistaken.
Thomas Cranmer.
Thomas Cranmer. So 5 days later, after he declared Catherine and Henry's marriage null and void, tada! Kinasal na sila May 28th,
Ah,
1533, and of course the marriage was declared good and valid.
mm,
And again, kumbaga nag-parade, may parade pa nga na nangyari.
oo.
It was there's a drawing actually of this one, nung nag-parade si Henry sa streets, Henry and Anne sa
Mm.
streets of London. But then again, let's talk about first on the next points here. I'll let you discuss this, Cleo.
Okay. This one. Okay. So she
Yeah.
was crowned queen consort on the 1st of June, 1533. So it was a bonggang coronation. No expenses paid. So no expenses spared. So talagang
Yes.
in effort. Sabi nga natin si Henry very extra. So
Mhm.
uh and I think during that time as well, Anne had to come up with her own motto, and yung kanilang mga initials are entwined in banners.
Yes.
So it's H and A. Ang joke daw, since she wasn't popular, syempre hile-hilera yung banners na may H and A. Sabi, ha ha ha.
Uh-huh.
So it's like, so
It's sort of a mockery.
exactly, sort of a mockery. So she was paraded in the streets, and it was very lukewarm
Mhm.
yung reception ng mga tao. May
Yeah.
may isang episode in The Tudors when Anne's father was asking, where are the crowds? Kasi
Mhm.
walang tao. May mga tao,
Right.
pero it wasn't a very joyful reception for her. And
Yeah.
she was crowned queen consort with Saint Edward's crown, which have been used by previous monarchs, and it's only used by monarchs. And historian Alice Hunt suggests that this was done because Anne's pregnancy was visible by then. So preggers na siya, and
Yeah.
they were all assuming it was a boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, kasi syempre hindi naman nila masasabi nun kung boy or girl dahil wala pang ultrasound. So,
Totoo.
sinasabi ng mga doctors or ng mga, at that time may mga ano sila, parang astrologers. And
Yes.
astrologers would say, it's going to be a boy. Kaya maraming na kinaiinisan si Henry tuloy ng mga astrologers kasi mga mali yung mga predictions.
Oo, siguro ito yung mga soothsayers niya na nagsabi na, ano, lalaki yung pinagbubuntis ni Anne, yada yada. O siya naman siyempre ano siya, Gulliver siya. So,
Gulliver, Gulliver
naniwala si
Travels.
oo, oo, naniwala si King Henry bilang Gulliver siya. So there.
Ay, we mean gullible, baka kasi sabihin niyo, "Oh, hindi na
Oo,
alam yung naka-operate."
gullible po yung ibig ko sabihin when I said Gulliver. So, Becky.
Mamaya ma-operate tayo sa "Itong dalawang 'to mali-mali." So ibig sabihin ko lang kasi if you notice minsan nagbe-Becky language kami, though si Shops ang mas magaling diyan. Ayun, anyway,
Oo.
so yun nga, chatterbox kami. But then again, hindi siya lalaki, girl lalo siya. So,
Yes,
girl
33.
lalo. Kaya daw yung sa invitation na nakalagay yata sa proclamation, Prince, since babae, dinagdagan ng ng isa pang S. Kasi nga, mga nag-assume kasi.
Oo, correct. And parang ewan ko kung saan ko 'to nabasa or napanood, parang may mga blue na yata na naka-ano sa tutulugan nung bata, parang may mga color coordination na nangyari or whatsoever na kasi nga parang all of them were like so, um,
Sure.
confident. Yeah, very sure that the king will be siring an heir this time. But no. So September 7, 1533, Elizabeth came into the picture. So a redhead baby, but
Uh,
it's a woman. It's a baby girl.
Baby girl. Okay. And 'di ba, parang I'm sure it must have been very frustrating for Anne kasi she was expecting it to be a boy.
Yes.
I'm sure it was very frustrating for her. And of course, it says here that Anne had 3 miscarriages. So
Mhm.
imagine, I think it's very, it's not common if you are very stressed na
Mm.
you would miscarry the child. And with the stress that this woman was experiencing, same thing with Catherine, I'm sure, imagine mo kailangan lalaki. So with
Uh-huh.
all, with all the thinking and the unnecessary stress, sadly, it would be probable that you would not carry the baby to term. Kaya,
Yeah. And the way that I was thinking, it wasn't always butterflies and unicorns between the
Mhm.
two of them.
Yes.
Like theirs was a passionate love. They would butt heads. They would get
Mhm.
into fiery disagreements, and
Mhm.
then make beautiful love afterwards. And then, but it can be really exhausting for the two of them, let alone Anne, because her job was practically to bear Henry a son, and the
Mhm.
mere fact that you can't do that, threat na yon sa'yo. Siyempre, every single time ka na lang na magbubuntis ka, mag-aalala ka kung ano kaya 'tong
Lalaki
lalabas.
ba 'to? Yeah, 'di ba? Kasi
Lalaki ba 'to o babae, 'di
and
ba?
Yeah, that's true. And the stress that it brought her, I'm sure it weighed heavily on her. Ano ba to, lalaki ba to? And of course, sabi, and at that time kasi, pag ang queen was able to give the king a son, she can ask for anything, and Henry
Yes.
wouldn't say no. So,
Mhm.
parang established ka na. Parang safe ka na.
Mhm.
You can, sitting pretty ka na lang kasi nabigay mo na yung gusto niya.
And
And,
understanding, 'di ba, how Henry thinks. He's very fickle,
yeah,
eh,
very
'di ba?
fickle. He's very fickle, and of course during that, kasi before when Anne was still a mistress, she was okay lang na magselos eh.
Mm.
Pag mistress ka, okay lang magselos, mag-tantrum ka diyan, aamu-amuhin ka niya. So it was exciting for Henry when she was still a mistress. Pero nung naging
Yes,
asawa ka na, it was already not, it wasn't exciting, it was nagging. So,
yes. It became nagging na. So hindi na
nagging.
nakakatuwa, hindi na cute.
Hindi na cute. Hindi na exact. Kasi like what you've said, they had a very passionate love affair. Mag-aaway sila and then they would make beautiful love later. Di ba? Ganun sila eh. But like we said, it was very tiring. And
Mhm.
si Anne got paranoid too because
Yes.
when she's pregnant, Henry would need a bed warmer.
Yeah, bed warmer and those aren't pillows.
Hindi siya pillows, eh, siya ay babae. So what Anne did was, since she was paranoid, kasi nga baka nga, okay, it was, history was repeating itself eh.
Ayun, yeah.
When Catherine was pregnant, Henry couldn't, bed his wife. He had to look elsewhere. So came Mary. So nahumaling siya kay Mary. So Anne knew what could happen. So
Mhm.
what she did was she suggested her cousin to a
Excuse me.
mistress. Kasi
Mhm.
sabi, okay, let's keep it within the family. Tayo-tayo lang. Para, tayo-tayo lang. Para yung influence and the king's mind would still be on her. Parang
Yeah,
I
the
don't,
favor is still within the
within
Boleyn line.
the Howards. I don't
Yeah,
know. Parang paano, how would his mind be on you if he's bedding someone else? 'Di ba?
exactly.
Pero, I don't know. That's how they think. So, ang weird lang. 'Di ba? Imagine mo, pinsan mo, sige, 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 akitin mo siya. Basta tandaan mo lagi mo ako ime-mention ha. 'Di ba ang weird?
Exactly. Parang kamusta na kaya yung 'pag pinagbubuntis ng pinsan ko sa'yo? Parang teka lang, ano yun?
Excited ka ba?
Exactly.
'Di ba? It's like, it's so weird. But
It
then
is.
again,
Parang I don't even wanna think about it, like, how they went about with their affairs. Um, when I say affair, like, literally how they relate to each other when they see each
mhm,
other, 'di ba? Parang ang hirap. So, ayun nga, parang after all of these hullabaloo's, unfortunately, Anne was not able to sire a son. So
mhm.
she wasn't able to bear Henry a son. And obviously, umariba na naman yung frustration ni Henry. And prior to that, nung last na nagbubuntis
Miscarriage,
siya,
yeah.
nagsa-start ng manligaw itong si Henry ng bago. And
Mm.
that was Jane Seymour. So, ayun na. So, eventually, nung Anne saw proof of this already, so probably she caught Henry or have seen Henry with Jane walking or being just simply talking to her. So, nagkaroon na siya ng idea na this Jane was me way back when
Yeah,
I was when Catherine was queen, and now that I'm queen, this woman, this bee named Jane is now trying to take my place, and who the hell is she? Yada yada yada. So I had miscarriage, and wala na nangyari.
wala na.
So Anne basically was a queen for a total of 1,000 days. And she struggled to really give Henry the son that he longed for, and dahil dyan, yung kanyang chummy-chummy na
Bestie.
si bestie na si Thomas Cromwell and nag-turn against sa kanya. This was the king's closest advisor and close din sa kanya during that time na kumbaga blossoming pa yung affair nila ni Henry. But then again, shit happens,
Shit
unfortunately.
happens, yeah.
And
That's
this was
right.
what happened.
So she was, so i-chika lang natin side note kung paano nangyari yung downfall. Since nagkaroon sila ng conflict ni Thomas Cromwell, I think it stemmed from uh, nagiging masyadong influential si Cromwell to Henry, parang hindi na masyadong nakikinig si Henry kay Anne. Well, hindi naman talaga siya nakikinig, pero yung mas pinapaboran niya kung ano yung ina-advise ni Cromwell compared to Anne.
Mhm.
So Anne got angry, and there was allegedly, she said that you have to be careful making an enemy of me. Sabi niya kay Cromwell.
Hmm,
She allegedly said that. So see, Cromwell was thinking, tika, it's either me or her. So it's going
right.
to be her. So it took him a month to plot her downfall. It only took him a month.
Exactly. Na parang, wow, this guy is really good. I mean, you plotted for a month. You really you're really smart. You had the
Very
connections
smart.
most probably, and pretend ill ka lang tapos yun pala may
Mm.
binabala ka na behind my
Mm.
back. Ang galing mo.
Oh, and like sabi ni Shops, he pretended to be ill. So he was like parang, oh sige, mag-sick leave ako ng 1 month.
'Di
Pero
ba?
yung pala, nagpa-plot na pala siya noon. So
Oo.
yun ang press release niya. May sakit daw siya, so he couldn't go to court for a month. So pinaplano niya. So what he did, he interviewed people around
Oo.
Anne, her ladies in waiting. And Anne
Mm.
wasn't exactly the nicest mistress. I mean, the nicest boss.
Mhm.
May pagka, siguro kasi she has a very strong personality that people think that antipatika siya. But
Oo.
maybe it didn't really sit well with some of her ladies. So in interview and ask her sino yung mga pumupunta sa kwarto ng queen. So they mentioned a couple of men, including a certain Sir Henry Norris, who was one of Henry's friends.
Oo.
Kaso, kaya naman nandun palagi si Sir Henry, nililigawan niya yung pinsan ni Anne na lady in waiting.
Yes. Kumbaga, ayun lang, parang siguro isa sa mga ladies in waiting ni Anna talagang may
May galit.
may galit o may gigil yan, "Gigil ako
Mm.
sa'yo." Ayun,
Oo.
gigil siya kay Anne.
Hindi siya kay Anne.
Kaya kaya nag-ano siya, kumbaga she spilled the tea
Oo.
to dun sa mga allies ni Thomas, if not Thomas himself.
So si Cromwell, so he interviews sino who goes in and out of her chambers. So nag-collect ng evidence si Cromwell, trumped up so parang syempre courtly love, it was
Mhm.
the game is courtly love. So
Yes.
between Henry Norris and Anne, so si Anne daw sabi, why are you always here, ganyan ganyan. Tapos sabi, why don't you ask the lady to marry you already? Tapos parang
Mhm.
na-taken aback si Henry Norris. And
Mm.
Anne well, Anne allegedly said, you desire to feel a dead man's shoes. So ibig
Mm.
sabihin, hinihintay mo muna mategi asawa ko, tapos pakakasalan mo ko. Parang ganun yung ano. But of course, Cromwell interpreted it as predicting the king's death. And pag sinabi mo mamatay yung king, it's already treason. So ano ang
Yes.
parusa sa treason? Death. So naakusahan ng adultery si Anne with Henry Norris,
Yes. And several others, including
several
his
others.
cousin and his
Brother,
brother and this court musician.
si Mark Smeaton. Mark
Yes.
Smeaton was the
That
court musician, and he was also I think, music teacher ni Elizabeth. So,
mm,
itong mga mento, syempre they were just there to entertain her. And
exactly.
it was nothing. And it was really trumped up charges, especially with George. Incest
Yes.
daw.
That was really heartbreaking considering how close she was with George.
Yeah, they were very close. Silang dalawa ni George were very close. So it was really very heartbreaking for her. She defended herself with dignity. She was
Yes.
very confident. But of course, parang ano na lang siya, for show na lang. Parang
Mhm.
formality na lang.
Right, 'cause
Pero may
alam
judgment na,
natin
may verdict na.
oo, kumbaga may na-drop na yung verdict bago ka pa makapagsalita in front of them. And what's funny was we failed to mention one thing that happened to Anne when she came back to England. She got engaged with Henry Percy,
Oh yeah.
right? And Henry Percy along the way became one of those, people who would drop the ball on her. Kumbaga isa sa mga judge nung nagsalita siya and pati yung uncle niya.
Yeah. So it was
Eh,
like, so kaya sabi ni Dr. Tracy Borman, sa mga Howards and the Boleyns, blood is not really thicker than water.
exactly. It's like the king's favor that
Yeah.
matters the most.
Yes. So sabi nga nila, parang there was already a verdict. Parang ginawa na lang show yung hearing, yung trial, para lang may masabi, okay, we also tried to hear your side of the story.
Right.
But the thing is, may verdict na. So she was sentenced to death by beheading. And
Mhm.
and ito ang very suspicious. So, di ba, usually na-drop na may verdict, parang yun na nga, may verdict na pala noon pa. And the most obvious reason was, Henry already sent a man from France to do the
Right.
execution. Eh, syempre, hindi naman tulad today na madaling makabiyahe. It would take
Mhm.
days. So,
Yeah.
ibig sabihin, it already has been arranged. Di ba?
But apparently, ang pinapakita sa history books like in an act of mercy. So if we are to think about this, yun nga, days before Anne talking to the judges happened, pinatawag na niya tong swordsman na to.
Yeah, so pinatawag na ni Henry because the death by sword is much cleaner and swifter compared to the axe. Kaya
Yes.
sabi daw, di ba,
Imagine being hacked many times and kumbaga meron ka pang hininga pero you're being hacked. I
mm,
cannot imagine how terrifying that could be.
yeah, so it was like, okay, para mabilis daw, and the way it was done was the French style, that you
Mhm.
would kneel down instead. Di ba usually
Yes.
they would put their heads on the block,
Yes.
but with Anne's execution, she was kneeling, so she
Yes.
had the blindfold, and but before kneeling down, of course, she made a very moving speech.
Uh-huh.
It was a very moving. It was like when I saw the movie, the other Boleyn girl, the way
Yes.
Natalie Portman did it,
It was like yun eh.
yun yun.
Oo.
Yung parang she was hoping for mercy. Like, last minute, baka may karoon ng reprieve.
Correct.
Diba? Parang, I don't know if Mary again, we didn't really know what happened. We don't know if her sister Mary did something to help, but it would
Mhm.
have been nice. It would have been a nice thought, no,
Yes.
na it must have happened. Na Mary tried to help daw, but the way that the way she said her speech was very moving. May mga naiyak daw na mga nanonood.
Mhm.
But she conducted herself with grace and dignity to the very last time. Kaya when she was executed, she knelt down and she was blind. She was blindfolded, and
Mhm.
the swordsman daw said, "Boy, my sword." And pero hawak na ni swordsman yung sword, so yung
Oo.
assistant na doon sa kabilang side. So Anne would turn her head this way para
Mhm.
ma-distract siya, and then it was chopped off. So para, di ba, in a way, maybe it was mercy.
Yes. In a way.
In a
But
way.
we all know that days after that,
Di
Henry
ba?
married Jane Seymour.
Di ba? Hindi pa malamig ang bangkay ng lolaan, biglang nagpakasal na.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, right, well, for the guys out there who haven't really explored the life of Henry VIII and these six women, we highly encourage you to do so because it's worth it. Makulay siya. Kumbaga, kung mahilig kayo manood ng telenovela or ng Korean novela, eto, talagang ano to, pasa din, kumbaga pasok to sa banga. Kasi
Mm.
etong bida nating lalaki, kakaiba.
Yeah. He's
You know,
very intriguing, and at the same time, parang gusto mo siyang,
'di ba? Parang
gusto mo siya na ba?
gusto mong siya na lang yung maespada sa leeg.
Oo. But then again, sabi nila, if you explore his behavior, he was a very loved prince,
Mhm.
very popular. Pero what happened? So it was really very interesting to find out more about him kasi sa totoo lang, mas juicy ito kasi sa mga chismis ngayon. Ng mga showbiz personalities, mas juicy ito. Diba?
Correct. Tsaka ayun nga, well, I think he was married to Anne nung nasa jousting, nag-joust siya tapos nalaglag siya sa
Horse.
horse. So he met an accident and apparently nabulabog yung head niya.
Mm,
So he went into a coma for 2 hours. So parang doon nag-start yung shift sa personality niya eh.
yeah.
Ng ano, so we
Hininga.
will probably tackle that a little later on, but
Um,
yun nga, when after Anne was beheaded, hindi inayos yung burial niya,
yeah,
unfortunately, at
it's so
masakit
sad.
kasi kahit na she wasn't well loved by the people of England, she still deserves a proper burial and that didn't happen. So
No, it
ayun.
didn't. It didn't. Like, hindi nakapag-prepare ng coffin for her. So,
Mhm.
what the constable of the tower did, he used yung lalagyanan ng mga arrows. And
Mhm.
ang arrows, diba, oh baka mali, ay ang liit naman nun. No, the arrows kasi were placed like hindi siya stack up on each up on it up stack up, hindi siya naka-stack up.
Against each other, oo.
It's like lying like this. So mahaba siya. And Anne was a
Mm,
petite lady. Tsaka
mhm.
payat siya. So, kumasya siya. Imagine mo, it's a it,
Diba?
it's a box for arrows na yun ang ginamit na coffin for her. And
Mhm.
that documentary, latest one by Dr. Tracy Borman that explored
Yes.
much more in-depth detail on Anne's last days, she mentioned that this is touching. Now, every year on the 19th of May, somebody sends a bouquet of red roses, anonymous. So they don't know who it is from. But the Tower of London gets a bouquet of red roses every 19th of May para ilagay dun sa grave ni Anne,
Chapel.
sa
So
chapel.
she was buried at the Chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula, but alongside her skeleton was identified during renovations at the chapel 1876. So ilang years after
Mm.
she was beheaded, and it was already Queen Victoria nung time na ang reyna nung na-discover siya. So but now it's now identified on a marble floor. So
Yeah.
she got what she deserved as a queen,
Yes.
a proper, inscription kumbaga sa floor na okay, Queen Anne is buried here.
Yeah. So it was such a sad end for such a feisty and lively woman na,
Mhm.
'di ba? Parang okay, ang sad naman, parang imagine mo 7 years niyo pinaglaban ng pag-ibig niyo tapos dito lang pala mapupunta.
'Di ba? Parang it just went all down the drain
Mhm.
only because you couldn't provide him a son.
And hindi alam ni Henry na ang lalaki ang nagde-determine ng sex ng baby, 'di ba?
Yes,
Do'n ako
'di
naiinis.
ba? Correct. Kaya there's probably a curse in the Tudor family. I don't know.
May maybe, well, that's for a different episode, I guess.
Yeah, that's for a different episode. But for the guys who are still with us, as you can see in the slide, I placed here a photo of Anne's signature.
Ang ganda.
So, kahit in a way, she really knew that ma-attain ko yung plan, yung pinapangarap ko, magiging reyna ako, and she got what she was hoping for. She really became queen, and she really signed documents like saying Anne the Queen.
And look at the spelling of the queen.
Yes.
Queene. Uh-huh.
Very, old English.
Yeah, very old age. Hindi siya wrong spelling people,
That's how
they
they
really spell it
spelled
that way.
it, right.
Okay.
So that is basically the first two wives. So the story of the first two wives of Henry VIII. So the first was divorced, and the next one got beheaded because of high treason. So with that said, any more to add, Cleo, about
Ah,
Anne's story?
no, I think we really took a long time to talk about her.
So dalawa lang yan, wala
Dalawa
pa
lang
yung
yan.
apat.
Apa yung apat. But the thing is, people, the reason why we put Catherine and together, I just want to emphasize because their stories were so intertwined. Hindi mo
Mhm.
pwede talagang ipaghiwalay kasi connected,
Right.
right? So yeah, the next couple of wives, number 3, 4, 5, and 6, will be on the next episode. Kasi nga masyado mahaba kung silang lahat, di ba?
Mhm.
Baka maging 4 na oras ito. Hindi, joke lang. Di ba? So, next time na sila. Right?
Mm.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Anything else that you'd like to add about Catherine or Anne?
No, I think we pretty much tackled everything, and I just hope you guys won't, won't tire listening to us, and as we talk about these people from history, abangan nyo po next, siguro in a couple of weeks time, we will be talking about kung kaya namin tong apat na natitirang wives ni Henry VIII.
Kakayahin
Oo,
natin.
kakayanin natin, pag-uusapan po naman natin
Kakayanin natin.
sila. And then hopefully, you guys can drop a note or a comment. Let us know what you want us to discuss next time after these four ladies, these four wives of Henry VIII, and we will definitely give in to your demands. So again, guys, let's remember history is not boring. It's part of the fiber of our existence, and tandaan natin wala tayong saysay kung walang kasaysayan. And yan
Correct.
po yung gusto naming ibahagi. That's the reason why we came up with Gab mentality. We want you to realize how important history is in our lives. So thank you
Yes.
guys for tuning in. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And again, guys, we're looking forward to creating our Facebook page so that we can get more interaction
Yes.
from you guys out there. Again, thank you so much. You have a great Sunday. See you next time here in Gab Mentality.
Babu. Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Stay safe.
Stay safe.
Choose, choose.